Hello, everyone. I am obviously not Michael Patrick Rooney, so this is going to be 26 minutes of purgatory. We call the College World Series games 11 and 12 preview. We have reached the semifinal round of the College World Series, the final four, if you will. We don't use that same terminology in baseball, but that's essentially where we're at. Before we get into anything specific here, a quick shout out to the folks at the Omaha Experience. You may have seen that live and in person if you've been here at the CWS. We also recorded a show there before the first games of the tournament. 4 brands under one roof: Louisville Slugger, DeMarini, EvoShield, and Wilson. A lot of cool stuff in there. Whether or not you have someone who is, playing the game at the youth level or the adult level, there's just a lot of cool stuff to play with, to look at, to try on. I like to just put all the gloves on and do practice swings with the bat. Don't do that if the store is full, though. The bat part, not enough room for that. I don't want that to come off like I'm endorsing that behavior. So, but a very cool place to air conditioned, very air conditioned. It's important we get that in. I know Runes includes that as part of his read every time. The Omaha Experience at the Baseball Village here in Omaha. All right, I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, the pride of Lufkin High School, Kendall Rogers.
Oh yeah,
and Worcester County's Aaron Fitt. We're going to take a look at games 11 and 12, but first, we're actually going to take a step back, and we are going to look at a busy day in Omaha on Tuesday. We had 3 games, kind of. We had a resumption of LSU, UCLA, then we had Oregon State, Louisville, and then UCLA had to come back and play Arkansas last night. Kendall was in the driver's seat for that first game of the day. So, Kendall, tell us a little bit about the resumption of UCLA and LSU.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the start of that game feels like it was 3 days ago, but I mean, they're in the first inning against Anthony Hines, and UCLA gets off to a hot start with 3 runs, and LSU, give them a lot of credit. LSU comes back in the bottom half of that inning with 3 straight singles, and then Jared Jones hits a home run, 110 off the bat to give LSU the lead. They stretch that thing out to 5-3, and then ultimately the story of the game is Casey Evans. Casey Evans has been brilliant for LSU all season long. That breaking ball and that electric fastball. I love his poise. You think back to that situation he had to come into against West Virginia in the Super Regional, or against Little Rock in the Regional as well. And he stepped up in both those instances. So he was a story of the game. But the other guy for me, guys, as we look ahead to today, that stood out to me yesterday was Stephen Milam. This is a kid that, we've never questioned his defense, right? I mean, he was great defensively yesterday, but he was a guy that for pretty much the entire season, we're thinking, okay, when's the bat going to come? And it has come here in Omaha. I mean, he had 2 hits the first game. He had 2 hits in RBI against UCLA, and through 2 games, he's hitting 500. So, with his elite defense to go with that, that's good development for LSU. So, the middle of that lineup did a really nice job with Jake Brown, Milam, and Jones. Casey Evans took care of business on the mound, gave them some length, and now LSU's in a really good position moving forward against Arkansas.
Yeah, double-edged sword, it feels like, with Casey Evans. We'll talk about LSU's prospects for today's game a little bit later, but, you're right, Kendall, that he helped bridge that gap and kept them from having to bring additional arms into the game, but he was probably going to be the guy they started today if he had been available. So we'll talk about that when we get there.
I would say too, Joe, the other thing that really stood out to me is, we were all kind of talking about in the press box, but it's just the defense from Milan and Rod Chalowski. Rod Chalowski's season is over, but the defense from those 2 guys in that first game yesterday was incredible. Both of those guys, just wonderful instincts, great range, strong arms. It was a display. It was impressive.
I get asked sometimes, I'm glad you brought that up, because I get asked sometimes by people in my life who just don't follow baseball as closely as I do. And they ask, how do you, when you watch someone play defense, how do you, other than the result of do they make errors, do they not? How do you tell a good defensive player? And the best thing I can tell them is you just kind of know it when you see it. And when you watch Rock Chalowski and the way he moves around the bag on the turn, how quickly he gets the ball out. I mean, he's in possession of the ball for so little time whenever he's kind of in the middle of a double play. And
he had a play yesterday where he kind of just gives you an idea how well these coaches kind of have these kids ready for bounces and how a ball's going to bounce in the infield and things like that. He had a play yesterday where he kind of turned his body. He kind of put his glove up like that, and the ball just bounced right in his glove. That's just a great player, man.
Yeah, it's just feel for the game. Game 2 of the day was Oregon State and Louisville, and boy, this one got exciting late, real quick.
Yeah.
Aaron, take us through it a little bit. I know that you and I were kind of living and dying on this game pitch by pitch, because it really did get crazy tight at the end, and ended up kind of being a little bit of the inverse of what we saw with these two teams in their opening game of the CWS.
Yeah, inverse, good word. If you recall, in the first game, Oregon State had a 2-run lead in the ninth. Louisville scored 2 runs in the top of the ninth to tie it, only to see the Beavers walk them off. And that's what happened in reverse this time around. It was that kind of was the story of the game, was that ninth inning. That's kind of where all the action really happened. But you had the Beavers get a leadoff home run from Ivar Arquette, and then they a costly error by Alex Alisea, which we'll come back to in a minute. But that allows Oregon State to tie the game, and then they've got guys at second and third with nobody out, and they're kind of reeling. And it feels like, okay, like this is it. I mean, how do you get out of that jam after a back-breaking error from your star shortstop and nobody out, and Tucker Biven just dug in, struck out 2 guys on good sliders, got a pop out and stranded them. Like, to me, that was the huge sequence of the game, and it really gave Louisville a lot of energy going back to the dugout. They weren't hang dogs at that point; they were fired up. And Alisea led off the bottom of the ninth, drew the walk, 3-2 pitch, and came around to score the winning run. When Eddie King once again came through with a sac fly. Guy continues to just be, we call him postseason Eddie. He's been good a lot longer than just the postseason, but gosh, he's been a menace in the postseason. 2 more hits yesterday, 3 more RBIs, like crushing the ball, 110, 106 kind of exit velocities. It's just, he's dialed. He's just dialed. And, they had a bunch of guys contribute offensively. Jake Monroe had a couple of hits. They had 10 hits as a team. So I think it was like 8 different guys or something got into the hit column. And then you had a bunch of guys contribute on the mound. It's just kind of next man up mentality for them right now. It was Brennan Cutts for 3 innings, and West the lefty for 3 innings, and then you kind of mix and match all the way through. And that's just what they have to do right now. And it's working. They're finding ways. They're still alive. And Oregon State's really good. And that's not an easy team to put away. We saw that. And Louisville just got the last at bat and made it count.
It's interesting. We ran into listener viewer Chris from Louisville after that game, and he brought up a good point that that I hadn't really considered, and it just goes to show that the makeup of your lineup in terms of handedness doesn't matter until it does.
Yeah.
And in that inning where Biven was in the game, and a key moment of the game, you might say, the right-handedness of Oregon State's lineup just handcuffed them because they had nothing for that slider. Yeah. And look, maybe if it was left-handed hitters, who knows? I mean, it might not have gone any better, but it does put you at a little bit of a disadvantage when you're dealing with, right on right breaking ball that's the guy's landing, and Oregon State just had nothing for them. The finale of the day, UCLA and Arkansas. You kind of knew from the jump that UCLA was going to be a little bit handcuffed in this game. They started Cody Del Vecchio, who just got academically eligible. And for those who maybe are a little more conspiracy minded, they're on the quarter system. Like, it just happened to work out that he was able to get eligible in time. It's not a funny business situation. But he actually looked pretty good considering his layoff. Hadn't pitched in a long time. The stuff was pretty sharp. Now, the benefit of him having been ineligible versus hurt is that I'm sure he was throwing quite a bit.
Right.
Practice, simulated games. So like that rust was not there. Now, in-game rust was probably a thing, but his arm was in good shape. But the stuff was crisp. I felt like he gave him a shot. Just Vahivo Loy had other ideas. 2 batters into the game, the guy just like flicks a ball to right field at 100 and I don't know, I had it written down here somewhere, like 108 miles an hour, 109 miles an hour into the bullpen. And it's 2-0. And, in the 5th inning, he hits a triple off the wall that drives in a run. And that was really just about all the offense that Arkansas needed, because they got they got a good start from Zach Root. They brought him back after he threw 38 pitches against LSU. They brought him back, and he redeemed himself. Pitched really well with 5 strong innings, 5 shutout innings, and that I think there's 2 pieces to that. Where for one, obviously they needed to win that game, but then second is that Arkansas didn't have to burn another starter. Right now, I guess you could argue, oh, they could have brought Wood back today to play LSU, but you got to win one to get to the other. And so it kept them from having to go to somebody else they maybe didn't trust quite as much. And so now they're about as good a shape as you could imagine them being in, considering they have a loss and they're going to have to beat LSU twice. So, and then a quick word on UCLA. They just kind of ran out of, they brought a lot of guys pitched twice yesterday. Now, not huge pitch counts, so I'm not even trying to bring it up from that standpoint, but it just goes to show that they had their guys, and those guys were either going to be good enough or they weren't, and they just weren't. Yesterday is kind of the long and the short of it, but nothing but a positive season for them in the context of they were just bad last year, and they've not shied away from that. Like, they were bad, and you got the stuff with their stadium going on, and yet they, in the season in Omaha, they win whatever it was, 44, 48 games, whatever it is. Just a heck of a season, and gets them back on track as a program. And oh, by the way, like top 3 preseason, top 5, like at least top 5, it feels like. I mean, just a team full of sophomores. Mulavai-Lavu is kind of the only guy, or no, not Mulavai-Lavu, AJ Salgado, excuse me, really the only guy that for sure not coming back. Like literally everyone else could possibly come back. So really excited about that, but really positive season for them to get back to this stage. Go ahead, Aaron.
Completely agree. And, just a tip of the cap to the Pac-12 wing of this College World Series, which is now gone. Oregon State also out, Arizona out the first day. It was nice to have that West Coast flavor again here in Omaha, I thought. And the Bruins and Beavers came out, won their first games, availed themselves well. And the same kind of thing for Oregon State. Like, this was a big step forward under Mitch Canham. First time they've been back to Omaha, and they were really good. They could have won it all. I mean, there's a lot of teams here that could have won it all. This was, there's some really good teams here. But Oregon State, I thought, they were as advertised. It was a fun team to watch. I mean, and they threw a bunch of good arms yesterday too. I mean, those guys they have so much talent on the mound. That's, again, the part that just really struck me this week is because I hadn't really seen them much in the regular season in person anyway. And it's just like we talk so much about their lineup, but gosh, they have a lot of young talent on the mound too. Another team that even though they're going to lose some guys, I think they're going to be a force going forward.
The death of West Coast baseball greatly exaggerated, as it turns out. All right, fellas, let's turn our attention to Wednesday's slate. First game on deck. We've got Coastal Carolina and Louisville. That'll be 2 Eastern, 1 Central. Obviously, we understand the state of play. Louisville has to beat Coastal twice, today and tomorrow, to move to the finals. I guess my big question, I'll do this a little bit differently than Runes has been doing it. I just kind of have a general question first, maybe before we get into anything specific, and that's what is the – Aaron, draw up the scenario for me in which Louisville has a little something for Coastal that puts them in position to maybe win this game.
I mean, I just think all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, really. I mean, I guess they've been hot for a while there in Omaha, but I mean, right now it feels like they've got some momentum. They've been able to kind of run their offense a little bit and cause some disruption. I think it's been good to see Lucas Moore, get going a little bit. He had a couple of hits, and I think their second game I mean, he's, got on base again, stole a bag the other day. LSA had a couple of steals. I mean, we all know Caden Bodine is an elite catcher who controls the running game pretty well, but it's not like you can't run on him. I mean, it's the receiving is his superpower. His arm is accurate, but it's not like a rifle, and so I would expect them to play their game. They're going to come out and push the action. And like everyone always says about Louisville, is they're a tricky team to defend, to game plan for, to play. They're just like kind of an annoying team to play against because of their style. And they also hit for some power the other day. I mean, that depends on the conditions a little bit, but I mean, Monroe and Zion Rose both went deep. And so they got that piece going as well. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work for them on the mound. That's where I start to wonder how much they've got left. I don't know what the plan is for them on the mound. Is it just going to continue to piece it together? I do know that Coastal I don't know if this wasn't part of your question, Joe, but Coastal is
Go ahead.
going to bring back Riley Eichhoff. I've confirmed that with Kevin Schnall through like 41 pitches. What day was that? Was that Friday? Friday. What's today? Wednesday. Yeah. So I mean, he's in good shape. I mean, they've got so much behind him. I would expect this time around you to try to save Fluky, and again, I mean, guys that just haven't even thrown yet out of their bullpen are really good that are available. They're just in the catbird seat. That's the bottom line. Is they're just sitting pretty. They're rested, and I mean, I don't know. It's setting up pretty well for them.
Yeah, Kendall, pick up where he left off. Give us a little something on Coastal, whether it's an X factor, a player to watch, a theme, something like that.
Yeah, obviously the story of the game for Coastal is going to be Riley Eichhoff, as Fit kind of just said. But I mean, if you look at his last, 4 starts, his first start against Arizona, 2 runs in 4 innings. But before that, he had given up like 2 runs and 20+ innings in his previous 3 starts before Arizona. So obviously, him giving them some length will be a key today. I kind of feel like I'm riding Coastal here. I just feel like they've played such an incredible brand of baseball over the last couple of weeks. They got the pitching advantage. They can, as we've kind of discussed over and over, they're one of those offenses that, you feel like you have them under control. Then all of a sudden they have a runner in scoring position. They find a way to get them home. I just think, Coastal wins today.
Yeah, it's funny. Coastal, it feels like Coastal hasn't played in 2 weeks. I saw somebody with the Sun Belt Conference in the press box and was like, "Congrats on your team getting to play tomorrow at a bare minimum." To me, that's you try to get as much as you can from Eichhoff, and then you just throw bullpen at them. But to Aaron's point, I mean, they've used Hayden Johnson and they've used Lynch, but that's kind of it.
A little bit of Carbone, like 1 inning, but the first
yeah, that's right. And again, 2 weeks ago, feels like. But nobody's off the table, right? They haven't burned anybody. So. I mean, they're in really good shape. But you're right, Aaron. Like if Louisville just comes in here and their offense operates at peak performance, they could make a game of this.
It's like I can't remember who said this last night when we were chatting about it. It might have been Coach Farron. I don't know, but Louisville wants to get down in the mud with you, right? And Coastal's just they haven't had to play in the mud. It feels like in months they just play so clean all the time. They're not a pig in slop here. But Louisville, we saw it yesterday. Like it gets a little bit weird and just kind of an ugly game. They're fine with that. They're comfortable in those situations. So can they knock Coastal out of their comfort zone? That's what I'm watching here. Because Coastal's just played so comfortably for so long. It seems like every day.
Yeah. They seem like a well-programmed computer or something.
Yeah. Let's we've alluded to a little bit. Let's go around the horn with some predictions. I'll start for just myself. I've got Coastal here. To that point, they've played so clean. I like the way their pitching sets up. I also think there's something to the fact that I think just kind of the to the point we just made, like the way they play is just not going to allow Louisville to probably play the game that it wants to play. Even if it's high scoring, I don't think it's going to be the type of game that Louisville wants. Coastal's just probably not, if they play well, not going to allow that. So I'm going to go Coastal, understanding that Louisville's offense does allow for some volatility there, but the Chanticleers, and that's the Chanticleers, have just played so well. So it's hard to go a different direction. But Kendall, give us your pick.
Yeah, I will go with Coastal as well. Although I will say this, we talked about Louisville and the potential for Zion Rose and Eddie King, et cetera, to hit home runs. The wind will be blowing out today at 10 to 15 miles per hour. So that's something to keep an eye on. That could help Louisville a little bit. But I do like Coastal, man. They're playing incredibly well. The thing that's impressive to me, and I'm not, people like outside of us look at a team like Coastal and a program like Coastal and go, that's a cool little run they have. But this is a really neat team in the sense that they know they're really good and they kind of expect to win the national championship. And I just don't think they are programmed to kind of get out of their plan. And I think they take care of business today.
Yeah, Aaron? And if the wind is blowing out, I like Eichhoff even more because he's your sinker guy. He's going to keep him on the ground.
Great point.
I like Coastal. I just think they're a machine. They're just a winning machine. And I just haven't seen any cracks in the armor, in a long, long time.
Yeah. Not since I saw them first weekend, and they
like listen. When I saw them in the fall, like there were some things we had to figure out. All right, like I'm just telling you, they've come a long way since then.
Yeah, you were not that high on them in the fall.
I didn't feel like Kevin Schnall was that high on them in the fall.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just like sandbagging me, but he didn't seem very enthusiastic. I don't know. I mean,
I think if I remember right, you thought they'd be a regional team, but that was kind of the extent of it. But that, again, just for the listeners, I mean, that was back in like November. So
much of it was dependent upon how those guys came back on the mound from injury. They had 3, 4, 5 key guys that were coming off injury that didn't really get to see in the fall, and they were just giant X factors. And that one, all those guys came back better than ever, and took these big steps forward, and that's how they became an elite staff. It all just happened, and certainly Matt Williams, as their new pitching coach, has been a huge piece in this.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, even if the quality of who they had on the mound was better, just the number of guys they had coming off stuff, if those guys just don't come back from a physical health standpoint, that could have been a very different season for them. So it's a great point. Let's go to our night game. That's Arkansas and LSU. That's 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Going to be, of course, another crazy atmosphere for that one here in Omaha. I imagine that will be bonkers. I think it's like I said in the when we talked about yesterday's games, I think Arkansas sets up about as well as you can to try to beat this team twice. And I think a couple of things about that. One is that their offense, when it's clicking, is just so good. And I think we started to see a little bit of that. I mean, they scored 4 total runs in their first 2 games, which is not good. I don't have to tell you guys that. But what we saw yesterday, I think it's not just that Vahiva Loy had a big game. All that's part of it. It's the quality of at-bats. Dave Van Horn talked about he loved the middle of the field approach he saw from everybody. So that obviously makes them dangerous. And I think that because they got what they got out of Root, so Root's off the table, and Gage Wood and probably still Gackle are off the table. But everybody else is available. And, I presume we'll see Landon Beidelshees to start.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and look, it's been a little bit inconsistent with him, but when you get to this stage of the deal, you're you just know you're going to have to put somebody out there that you're probably just kind of, 50-50 on. Right. But obviously he's of a better quality than what most teams would have at this stage. And so I like that. If he can keep LSU's offense down, I give him a shot. But I think it's gonna be fun. Beyond the atmosphere, I think it's a fun matchup because I think both teams are they're just going to have to be in scratch and claw mode. And I think we might see that with LSU on the mound. I think it's probably going to be, no matter who starts the game, I think it's going to be a bullpen day for LSU, especially with Evans being burned.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say a couple of notes on Beidelshees. His last start against LSU earlier this year in Baton Rouge, he gave up 3 runs in 2 innings. Obviously, he's going to need to give them a little bit more length today than that. As for LSU, it does sound like it's going to be Jaden Newt, Connor Ware, or Zach Cowan.
Oh, and we'll probably see all 3 at some point. Just a matter of which order.
There's so many good arms in this staff that have just been inconsistent, and they're going to need somebody at some point in this run, you would think, to emerge with some key innings, right? Whether it's, you mentioned those 3 names, maybe it's William Schmidt, maybe it's Maverick Rizzi, a couple of extremely important freshman building block pieces for this team that have just walked too many guys. And can you trust those guys here now? I mean, maybe we'll find out. But, I kind of feel like Arkansas has a pretty good chance, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but I feel like Arkansas has a pretty good chance to force another game here. And so we're probably going to maybe get a look deeper into LSU staff and see if they can hold up here. Because I just think this Arkansas offense is starting to come, and I do like their pitching depth better. I think they've got enough here to force another game.
Yeah, one thing that'll be interesting to me, guys, is, late in this game tonight, the other day, or, the first game, LSU had, Anthony Ianson in the bullpen, kind of not warming up, but stretching out and things like that. And I do wonder what Jay does later in this game. Let's say they have a 1-run lead in the 8th. Do you do you chance going to Ianson there out of the bullpen to kind of close things out, or do you kind of hold your card there and saving for a potential second game? It'll be very interesting to see what Jay and Nate Yeski do in that kind of position.
To me, it's the X factor is Zach Cowan, because if he's for LSU, if he's the Zach Cowan of the first half of the season, first 2/3 of the season, LSU very well might be making this a 3-0 and we're moving on to the finals, because he was awesome. The last third, teams figured him out a little bit, and whether that was because of fatigue, the scouting reports just got better, whatever it was, teams saw him a lot better late. And so if it's that, you like Arkansas's chances, right? But to me, a lot of it hinges on if and when Zach Cowan comes into the game, what does he look like?
And I wonder, because they haven't had to lean on him as much these last few weeks, if maybe he's more rested, and I don't know if he was a factor. We're just speculating here, unclear.
Yeah,
but I wonder if we're going to come out and see a good version of him. I mean, wouldn't shock me.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. I was actually at his outing that kind of started, I wouldn't call it a tailspin, but kind of started him being human, was that outing he had against A&M in College Station several weeks ago, and when they tattooed him pretty good and then came back and won that game. And he has not really been the same since that point. So, you kind of wonder if there's just something that they discovered in that game that was maybe, I don't know, tipping pitches, or just something that teams are picking up on. I guess we'll find out later today, potentially.
Let's pick some winners here. I'll go ahead and I guess go first.
Sure.
I'm going to go Arkansas. I think we get another game, and I think that makes it more interesting with that extra game, because then we're really, speculating about what you do on the mound and how much do you balance the fact that you got to win that game versus looking ahead to the finals, and it really starts to become a really tough decision for everybody involved. I think maybe I'm just selfishly wanting another game between these two teams, but regardless, going with Arkansas. Aaron,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I think I already kind of alluded to it. I think Arkansas forces another game. It just feels like it's meant to be with these two teams. I mean, I said again all year long, I thought these were the two best teams in the country. Coastal has also earned a spot in that very top tier for me. I think three of the these teams that are left standing are the three best teams. And Louisville is certainly a really good team who's playing well, but I just think that those other three are just in the class at the top. And it just feels fitting that these two SEC West heavyweights get to duke it out here with a trip to the finals on the line. It just doesn't feel like a sweep to me. I just think Arkansas is going to find a way to at least get us to another game here.
Go ahead, Kendall.
Yeah, LSU fans are going to not like this, but I'm going to take Arkansas too. So we're going to go 3-0 Arkansas. I just, Jay Johnson, when I talked to him coming into this tournament, he felt like they were going to play a 3-game series against Arkansas. And I think they're going to play a 3-game series against the Hogs.
Yeah, and yeah, for the viewers that LSU fans, I do think we are voting with our hearts a little bit here, where I just do kind of, which is not to say we don't believe the picks.
Yeah.
I do think there is some element of it just feels inevitable, and
I just think Arkansas is in better shape on the mound, even though they played an extra game. I just think they're deeper on them. Yeah. I mean, with the guys.
I think LSU fans perfectly understand on a bullpen day, essentially, why we would pick Arkansas.
I still like LSU, I think, to go to the finals.
I do too. Yeah.
Series, and I think I'm sticking with that. But I think Arkansas will go to another game.
Yeah, I would think they come back with Ianson to start tomorrow if they have to play a second game.
If the questions I get asked on Baton Rouge radio are any indication, I do understand there's quite a bit of anxiety about the bullpen. You can always tell by the questions you get asked by local radio.
Oh yeah. Well, the crazy thing about their bullpen though is like Fit pointed out earlier. I mean, I've watched Maverick Rizzi in person this year, and dude, it was like one of the top 10 arms I've seen this year. So when he's on, it's pretty special. It's just when is he going to be on? It's kind of the same thing throughout the year with Will Schmidt. It's elite stuff. It's just which one's going to show up today.
Those guys are such X factors here. Again, as we get deeper into this thing, we have to start digging into our bullpens. If they're on and they're throwing strikes, boy, they're obviously their stuff's electric, and they can shut down anybody, including this Arkansas offense that we all think is maybe the best in the country. So we'll see. That's a fun matchup to watch.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, let's go ahead and get out of here. Give the people back their time. Going to be fun at the ballpark today. A couple of big games, a couple of games that might get a little bit ugly and teams kind of gouging each other's eyes out. But that's what this time of season is all about. So looking very much forward to it. Thank you once again to the folks at the Omaha Experience. Again, if you're here in Omaha, stop by the Omaha Experience in the baseball village. Try on a sliding mitt for yourself. Just put that sucker on. You ever wonder, like, what does it feel like when the runners have one of those on, buddy? You can find out for yourself. So head on down to the Omaha Experience. We had a great time there hanging out with them. Very, very air conditioned in that building. Some nice relief from the heat. All right. Thank you to Kendall. Thank you to Aaron. Once again, thanks to the folks at the Omaha Experience. We will talk to y'all again tomorrow morning, previewing maybe some games, maybe 0 games, maybe 1 game. I don't know. We'll find out today. Enjoy the baseball, everybody.